The Deepwater Horizon oil spill is increasing dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. An unusual low oxygen zone in the Gulf of Mexico waters off the Alabama shore has persisted for more than a month, and evidence now points to the ongoing Deepwater Horizon oil spill as the cause. Oil spills can deplete oxygen in the water by providing a source of food to microbes that grow on oil and consume oxygen in the process. Researchers can't say how low oxygen levels will affect the region's ecosystem in the long term, but for now, most animals that can swim away have left the area. But tiny plankton in the zone have already died. Researchers measured low oxygen levels along the entire 40-mile stretch they sampled around Dauphin Island, Alabama, from about 40 miles offshore to within a mile or two of the shoreline. The bottom layer of water was oxygen depleted at depths of approximately 30 feet close to shore to 100 feet further out along the continental shelf. A rim of shallow water tracing the coast from Mississippi to Florida. It's not little local pockets, said Monty Graham of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, who is tracking the zone. It's over a regional scale. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a band of low oxygen over that entire area between the Mississippi River and Florida. The low oxygen was pushing up very close to the shore, he added. His team trawled the waters to survey wildlife. In the low oxygen, all we got were sea stars. The fishes were up against the shore. In the same time frame, people started to see large sharks cruising in unprecedented numbers up against the shore. The low oxygen has pushed the prey up against the shore, and the sharks are cruising to take advantage of that. Like sea stars, plankton can't escape the oxygen-depleted waters. In the bottom layer, all the plankton were a white color. The others were nice and pink looking. The ones that were white at the bottom would indicate that they were probably dead for a while. This dead zone is unusual because of its location, but a massive low oxygen zone, now about the size of New Jersey, has surrounded the mouth of the Mississippi River for decades already. This area results from fertilizer runoff and other nutrients from upriver washing into the Gulf of Mexico and stimulating growth of algae, which decay, consuming the oxygen in the water and making it inhospitable to life. The dead zone that forms because of excess nutrients in the area is a huge one. Hypoxia east of the river does occur, but it's pretty patchy and it comes and goes. In the Gulf of Mexico, the low oxygen levels are widespread and they have lasted. It's been over 4 weeks, and it's persisted. When the researchers first found the low oxygen levels, they could not say whether they were attributable to the oil spill. Nutrients from the rivers feeding into Mobile Bay near Dauphin Island could have been carrying excess nutrients. This spring was especially wet, so unusually high river flows were a possibility. But now, the researchers have more evidence suggesting the rivers are an unlikely culprit. The low oxygen levels have persisted past the time of the seasonal freshwater surge into the Gulf. The zone is much larger than would be expected from river-borne nutrients, and the low oxygen waters seem to be arriving by a tongue of cold water that is pushed up from offshore, carrying elevated levels of methane. Long-term effects are uncertain. I don't think anybody can predict anything with confidence about what the ecosystem will do. The good news is that the shallow waters turn over relatively quickly. So once the spill is stopped, oxygen levels should or could rise. But in deeper waters, where researchers have measured decreased oxygen levels, it might be a very different story. The effects off the shelf might be longer. If you drive the oxygen down at 3,600 feet or 1,200 meters, there's nothing to replace that oxygen rapidly. You might see a low oxygen signature for years, maybe even decades, or perhaps generations. And yes, these are more signs. And over 27,000 abandoned whales in the Gulf of Mexico, more than 27,000 abandoned oil and gas wells lurk in the hard rock beneath the Gulf of Mexico, an environmental minefield that has been ignored for decades. No one, not industry, not government, no one is checking to see if they are even leaking. An Associated Press investigation shows the oldest of these whales were abandoned in the late 1940s, raising the prospect that many deteriorating sealing jobs are already failing. The AP investigation uncovered particular concern with 3,500 of the neglected whales, those characterized in federal government records as temporarily abandoned. And as a forceful reminder of the potential harm, the whale beneath BP's Deepwater Horizon rig was being sealed with cement for temporary abandonment when it blew on April 20th, leading to the worst environmental disaster in the nation's history. BP alone has abandoned at least 600 whales in the Gulf, according to government data. And there's ample reason for worry about all permanently and temporarily abandoned whales. History shows that at least on land, they often leak. Whales are sealed underwater much as they are on land, and whales on land and in water face similar risk of failure. Plus, records viewed by the AP showed that some offshore whales have already failed. So in other words, yes, there could be many leaking old temporary or abandoned whales in the Gulf of Mexico, adding to the oil day by day. And again, Revelation chapter 16, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, Go your ways, and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. 2. And the first went, and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. 3. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. 4. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became as blood. 5. And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which are, and was, and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. And yes, these are the end times, transition days. There is a great transition going on all around the world. It is a process. It's happening day by day. Again, in other words, everything that must change rapidly or quickly, and for the better, because it's about what kind of world the future generations will be inheriting. What kind of world are we leaving to the future generations of this earth? And all these are more signs.